It's not bad. It's leagues better than their last album, which I thought was their weakest release. It can be very pretty at times. Often enough, the uses of strings and driving piano melodies are more like saving graces than they are beautiful embellishments. The singing and melodic elements are okay, shining on a couple of songs like Right on Time and Things Will Be Fine. The production is serviceable. I don't have much more to say about this. It's just unspectacular, innocuous indie pop that will catch your ear here and there, which is pretty much on brand for Metronomy at this point. Holy anemic guitar pop, Batman. Oliver Tree! More like, not for me! Hey! Since Forever is a Mighty Long Time came out like a while ago in 2017, Krit has just not been living up to his own expectations. The stuff he's been putting out up to this point has been middling, generic, and pretty underwhelming as he has leaned strongly into contemporary stuff. Not to say he isn't talented by any means, but he hasn't been the artist most people know he can be. And with this new album, I will admit after my first listen, I thought this was yet another Krit album to just write off. The first half of it especially was just so unremarkable for the most part. South Side of the Moon was not a great way to open up the album. The love story concept didn't feel very fleshed out, and most songs were just unfulfilling, lacking a kind of finality or an oomph to them. After another listen, I did come around to it, and I started to appreciate the risks he was taking. His influxes of R&B and jazz and soul are presented in a thematic fashion per the concept, and his singing ability is more on display here than ever. I still think the first half is very uneventful outside of the song Show You Right. The second half is way better in terms of quality, album flow, and pacing. I don't think this album is by any means close to Krit's best work, but considering his current trajectory, it's a step in the right direction. I enjoyed it a good bit. I love their last EP, so I was quite looking forward to this new one. They continue their sound of sax, house, pop to some pretty good success. LOVE is really funky with an alluring hook. The title song is bound to get you bouncing in some capacity, and Butterfly is my favorite song off of here. It has a dense atmosphere, a relatively weird vocal delivery that really shines during the chorus, and a prickly, steamy dance beat. I wasn't that into Dance Into My Life. When you compare it to the other songs on the EP, it's very plain. The DJ Kirby remixes are pretty neat though. Overall, a good EP. Haven't heard from Mr. Oizo in a while, which makes sense considering he has directed 3 full-length movies since 2016. So when I saw that he had something new out, I pounced on it immediately. This is a collaborative EP with Italian producer Fra, and the duo here come through with some lively European electro house and European hip-hop. Most of the beats have a funky, experimental, dexterous twang to them, supported by some gruff and smooth flows that surprisingly fit well, and contributes to some pretty fun songs like Foie Gras, Hot in Her, and Hits Me. The vocals aren't always great though. There are a few spots where they try to be experimental with the deliveries, and they just sound weird for weird's sake, which is pretty apparent on the song Date 2, where the vocals sound like a bad Danny Brown impression. But I was glad to see Mr. Oizo is still kicking around, and this EP was a cool listen. Definitely check it out. It's not that long. This album is more of the same for Birthday Massacre, and for most people, including myself, that's heavily preferred. They haven't advanced their sound in any way, although this is one of their softer albums, but they still find ways to be creative and engaging, preventing themselves from feeling stale. Performances across the board are good, the production is solid, and their focus on a new wave direction will catch more people's ears this time around. My favorites were Dreams of You, Stars and Satellites, and Like Fear, Like Love. If you're a fan of the Birthday Massacre, you'll love this, but if you haven't heard them before, this is a good entry point into their music. This is a pure covers compilation for songs by Yoko Ono, as the title suggests, who I admit I don't recall ever hearing an actual song from, and if I have, I cannot tell you the name of it. So my perspective going into the album was to listen to the music itself, not to compare or liken it to the originals. Plus the talent pool on this album is pretty star-studded with Sharon Van Etten, David Byrne, Yola Tango, Death Cab for Cutie, US Girls, Flaming Lips, Japanese Breakfast, J-Som, Stephen Merritt, so on and so forth. So on paper this had the makings to be a great album. After listening to it, while I don't think it's great great. It does have a lot to offer, and I came away from it decently satisfied. I liked Toy Boat by Sharon Van Etten, Waiting for the Sunrise by Death Cab for Cutie, Don't Be Scared by We Are King, and Nobody Sees Me Like You Do by Japanese Breakfast. I loved Who Has Seen the Wind by David Byrne, Dogtown by Sudan Archives, Born in a Prison by US Girls, Growing Pain by Jay Som, Mrs. Lennon by The Flaming Lips, and my favorite one is Listen, the Snow is Falling by Stephen Merritt, which is absolutely mesmerizing. A handful of songs didn't do it for me, mostly because I felt like the artist that was doing the cover just wasn't expressing enough of themselves, if that makes sense. Like Yola Tango and especially Amber Kaufman. But all in all, it's a solid compilation album, and I'm definitely going to check out the originals as well. This is a pretty good indie electronic album that wears its shy passion on its sleeve. Most of the songs on here are moody and melody driven, paired with intimate and romantically ruminating vocals. The electronic and indie rock / dance infusions are pretty palatable and oddly meditative too. Most songs may share the same like melancholic direction, but they have their own distinct flavors to them. Feel What You has a locomotive glitchy feel to it. Doors has some pretty beautiful vocal harmonies. Iron is a delectable dance tune, and Really Wanna is my favorite one on here. It has like a soft tribal presence to it that's accentuated by its like nature-like embellishments and flair. It has a few songs that like emphasize tender vocals like Torn and Leaves that I wasn't that into, but overall this is a strong debut album, and I can't wait to see where Tennyson goes from here. To say that this is a pretty interesting abstract ambient album would be an understatement. What stands out the most about it is how its uses of oriental music and drone and ambient are interwoven together. The soundscapes are dreary and amorphous as hell, with some possessed arrangements of electronics and strings, groaning white tones, errant sonars, plunging abysses of sound, all collating into a harrowing album experience. Plus, considering the track titles are numbered days and nights, it leads me to assume that this could be a soundtrack to the early days of a post-apocalypse, where volumed smog and destruction are still fresh occurrences, so that aspect in itself is pretty cool. Obviously, what I got out of this album is not what most people who listen to this are going to get out of it, but to me, I thought it was great. I don't know why there isn't more buzz about this album. I think it's quite fantastic. Shamir is one of the best vocalists out there right now in my opinion, and on this album his ambition and sound and songwriting pays off in almost every which way. The first couple songs, Gay Agenda and Cisgender, are the hardest hitting songs with their crunchy industrial beats and blunt lyrics. Then the album slowly transitions to like more saccharine 90s rock and soul with pleasant and somewhat funky production, where he lays out his deepest and darkest depressing thoughts and memories, but not before absolutely blowing you away with his vocals. Holy shit. I'm not kidding when I tell you, your jaw will drop and you will be in awe of some of the beauty you are hearing coming from this man's mouth. The notes he hits and the way he effortlessly like malleates his voice at will while also being able to convey the exact emotion he's singing about in his lyrics is masterful. I have a lot of favorites on this album, but the ones that stood out to me the most were Cisgender, Caught Up, Father, and Marriage. This album should be talked about more. It's easily my favorite Shamir album, which is saying a lot considering how much I liked his last one. You gotta give it a listen. Once Twice Melody is massive in every applicable way. The album is like an hour and a half long, but it never drags. The flow and the pacing of the album makes it such a silky smooth experience with its own separate chapters layered out to be their own sonic sagas that eventually culminate into its own legend. And that's aided by how just amazing a lot of these songs are. How they're crafted is impressive as hell because the slow burn elements always click eventually. Like there isn't much in terms of like major progressions or sonic shifts in any of the songs, but the ways they sway you into its sound with slight nudges of micro progressions and subtle effects is immaculate. It's like the act of surfing where you're trying to catch a wave and ride it. For most of that experience, you're just trotting along, appreciating the scenery and like the build up, but once you catch that wave and ride it out, it's an unforgettable experience of bliss and euphoria. That is how I would describe listening to this album. It's so beautifully dreamy and submersive, and the songwriting is pretty potent as well, with numerous themes presented throughout the album that have their own subtle payoffs in other tracks. Things start to link together as you listen more in depthly, whether it be topics or sound motifs, and that sort of detail is often unappreciated. It's an amazing album in my opinion. Very few can do it like Beach House. Absolutely loved it. debut album for this metal band out of India who immediately caught my ears with their bludgeoning riffs and infusions of Bhangra and South Asian music. The singles for this were gargantuan in sound, they were hard-hitting and epic, with really the only point of contention being the rapping. Typically for me, I am not into rap metal because 99% of it is try-hard corn. Fast forward to the album and every track here has it, but I rarely felt put off by the rapping portions. It's very integral to the band's sound and actually accentuates the grooves, and it was fun to listen to most of the time. And it also made me laugh a couple of times with lines like, "None of that fake shit WWE, cause you know we keep it real like the UFC."
Now listen! That's called motherfucking bars, nigga! You know nothing about that!
The Hindi vocalist steals the show, however. Their performances across the entire album are nothing short of spectacular. You can hear every bit of raw emotion, whether it be screaming, growling, or tender singing, from the liberative Aj to the ruminating Yad. What's even more impressive is that the instrumental performances here are incredible. The riffs are really crunchy, the drums are massive, the use of like folksy string woodwinds is genuinely elegant, even when the guitars are going fucking crazy like on G Vire and Endurant. I love almost every song, especially Machi Basad and Chakle. The way these two songs seamlessly fuse loud ass Bhangra and incendiary metal is perfect. This is one hell of a debut album. It's super exciting and stimulating. I can't wait to see where they go from here. Here's a tier list of how much I enjoyed the albums I heard last week to help visualize my overall opinions. That being said, I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode's albums and albums you heard that I didn't mention. Leave a comment down below. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. Consider subscribing, and thank you for watching the video. I will see you guys next time.